Welcome back, rankers. This story made me laugh this week, and thank you very much to Mumbrella for bringing it to our attention. The NRMA, a very large insurance company in Australia, has in their terms and conditions of the use of their website that you may only link to their website if you have express permission from them, and you're not allowed to do it without permission. I hate to be their SEO, internal SEO, who absolutely would be crying at reading those terms and conditions. However, someone else has suggested in the comments of this story, mumbrella.com.au, that perhaps it's actually just an obscure form of link baiting, where they're trying to get people to link to them just to say how stupid these terms and conditions are. That'd be nice. Well, they certainly have got a few links from Mumbrella this week anyway. I want to talk to you today about social media and how it interacts with search. I'll be doing a webinar with smartcarpeting.com.au towards the end of the month on this topic. But I see it happen all the time. Some of you may remember the Holler Agency did a social campaign for Razzmatazz, a stockings brand here in Australia a couple of years ago, and that went really well. But what we did see with that, when they were doing the social media campaign for Razzmatazz, we saw a big spike in brand searches, presumably because people have heard about that competition or have heard about that campaign, and they want to find out more about it. So what do? They go to Google and they do a search for it. It's that simple. Everything is about keywords. I was having this conversation with someone in the office yesterday. In our conversations, in what we do online, we zero in on phrases or keywords that make sense to us. For instance, this campaign that's been put together by Bayer Pharmaceuticals, this week they launched it, and there was a big story in B&T Marketing Magazine yesterday. And basically, it's about the Sudoku Challenge, the Australian Championships. And apparently, John Eales, the former captain of the Australian Wallabies, which is a rugby team, is Australia's champion Sudoku player. Who knew? Not me. But what they're doing is Bayer Pharmaceuticals is tying this over 50s vitamin supplement to this Australian Sudoku Challenge. Now, they've called it the Australian Sudoku Challenge, which is fine. And look, they've got some good press about it. When you do a search for Australian Sudoku Championship this morning, there's a lot of news items about it, which is great. But a couple of interesting things when it comes to keywords. If I type in Sudoku Australian, the first phrase that Google wants to tell me that is most popular is Sudoku Australia. Then it's Sudoku Australian Championship. So that's the one that I search for, because that's the one that Google tells me is the most popular for what I'm looking for anyway in my area right now. That's what's most popular. And we get those news stories, which is great. But if you go to these news stories, say like if we just go to the Sydney Morning Herald story, there's the story. No mention, by the way, of the sponsor of this Sudoku Challenge, but it makes a good story. They're getting column centimetres. They're not going to get a backlink, though, because your major media sites or mainstream media sites will not give you a backlink. The bloggers will, but the big press sites won't. So we've got the URL down there at the bottom of the page, and we can see it's called the Sudoku Challenge. The problem is, and here's the site, which looks lovely. That site does not come up when I do a search for Sudoku Australian Championship. So these guys are missing out on search traffic that inevitably will come from people talking about this particular challenge if they're interested in Sudoku. They're not going to say, oh, it's called the Sudoku Australian Challenge or the Australian Sudoku Challenge. They're going to talk about, oh, it's some Sudoku Australian Championship, and that John Eales guy is involved. So even if I further refine my search, we're still not getting that target site come up. We're getting the news items, which once again is great, but remember, with news items, they're time sensitive. Over time, they will disappear. And not only that, but they will require someone to do a couple of clicks to get to the target page. This site should be coming up as number one when people are looking for that information. I've been very specific and I've done a long tail search and I still can't find this site. If we have a quick look at the code, we can see why. There's some really obvious things that have been ignored as far as search goes. I mean, no description tag here. That's a big no-no. Remember, your description tag is your chance to tailor your sales pitch when the page does actually appear in the index. If we have a look at the page title itself, great, I know this is powered by Barocca Focus 50 Plus, but really you don't need to put that in the page title. You're giving away major search value there. Let's face it, you've got it all over the page. We can see what it's about. But once again, you know, we're not getting any phrases on here that relate to search. So Australian Sudoku actually doesn't appear on this page at all. So they're the ways that you can, if you are doing either an offline campaign with billboards or whatever it might be, or even television advertising, God forbid, if you're doing something around a certain phrase or you're using a certain catch cry or you're trying to get people to think about a topic specifically, they're not going to remember your exact message. And a case in point, which many of you may have heard about, is a census here in Australia did a very annoying television campaign, and the main takeaway for most people was the phrase, "Look at me." Go and see if you can find that ad. But basically, when you're doing an offline campaign or a social media campaign, have a think about how people are going to be talking about that, because they're going to use keywords. They're going to say, go and have a look for, or if it's on YouTube, just in YouTube, just go and type in the phrase blah, blah, blah. It's what sticks in their mind. It's the key phrases, the key words that stick in the mind from the social campaign or the offline campaign that you were doing. And that is it for today's show. Hopefully that's helpful to a lot of you. And I'll give you more details about the upcoming webinar with Smart Company in the next week or so. And we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye.